Okay. All right. So let's start. If everyone could just mute for now, and then I'm basically gonna give a little talk about how this all started. And well, if you don't know anyone here, this is the Q&A for the Great Work in 33 Steps, which film I made over the past 4 years or so. And we have lots of the actors here, which are great. And I'm going to give kind of a background, and then we can go into a Q&A if you have any questions at all. First, I'd like to say that I'm an artist. I'm not such an occultist, even though I kind of read about these things. There are several people on here that could answer your questions a lot better than I can, including our pretty much one of the stars of the film, Ariel, Sirocco. And this all started when I was growing up. My mom, she liked the tarot. She had a Ouija board. She got me into Black Sabbath, and which was pretty neat. And so I remember growing up with this tarot deck. It was the 1JJ deck by Stuart Kaplan. And I remember seeing it kind of really interested, like, what the hell is this? You know, and she had it in this great like compartment with like some incense and myrrh and stuff like that. And the cards always smelled really cool. I wanted to eat them. And years later, many years later, she was going through her things and she gave me the tarot deck again. And she's like, oh, you should just take this. You know, I don't want it anymore, you know. So I did. And the deck is right here. And it still is in pretty decent condition. It doesn't smell like it did, though. It just smells like paper. But anyway, so I had this deck, and I kind of revisited it, and it kind of brought me back to my childhood a little bit. And so I put it away, you know, like we all do. We kind of revisit things and then just put it into the pile of stuff. And a few years later, a good friend of mine in Chile, Leonardo Casas, who's an artist down there, he was like, hey, you know, we should really reconnect again. And, you know, you haven't done paintings in a while. And at that point, I haven't painted in a long time. I got into the whole experimental music thing. And hang on a second, let me accept. I got into the experimental music thing full on, and I kind of put painting to the side. So I was like, you know, you're right. You know, it'd be kind of fun to go down, you know, and see you in Chile. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, you know, how about those tarot cards? I could do like a homage to my mom, you know, and stuff like that. So I brought out the cards again, and I chose the 10 that I liked, and basically did a remix of them. So I kind of kept the, you know, the integrity of the old deck, but added my own kind of flair to them. And so went down to Chile, brought my paintings, had this wonderful art show with all these great artists down there. It was well received. And came back, and being a completist, it really bothered me that I was like, you know, I only have 10. So okay, there's some more people joining us here. So I came back and I basically painted the whole deck. So the deck, 78 cards, but there's actually 2 other ones that are blank, which I also did 2 field paintings for those. And so through that time, I was reading a lot of Manly P. Hall and Hermeticism, and I like occult books, you know. And I can't remember the exact time I met Kevin Pelrine from the Tarot Society. It was probably at some sort of music event or something, and then we discussed the tarot, and I was like, oh, I'm working on my deck. And he's like, oh my God, you know, I really want to support artists that have their original decks. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I'll you know, let you know when I'm done, you know, which gave me more incentive to actually finish the whole 78 pieces. So I went to work, and over time kind of did them, and kind of learned a little bit about them. I'm not saying I'm an expert, you know, but it just, the artwork's fascinating to me. So worked on those, finished those, and Kevin was nice enough to give me a show at the Tarot Society, which I thought was fantastic. And all the paintings were on the wall. I have a great picture of them all of me in front, and it was really amazing. And I was like, oh, I did it. I did my paintings, and I was a little before that. Actually, I actually made a deck. I printed a deck to sell at the show as well. So there are physical copies of the paintings as well. So that was kind of another aspect of this whole thing. And then had Kevin, I think, and a couple other people going, oh, hey, have you ever had your tarot cards read? And I was just like, actually, no, I've never had my tarot cards read. And they were all like, oh, can we do it? Can we do it? And I was like, I kind of want it. I don't know. I didn't know what I wanted at that point, but I wanted it to be kind of special. And then I met Ariel Sirocco. I think it was probably before that. And we actually talked about my paintings. So that was right. When I was working on the first series of the paintings, he was like, oh, you're working on a deck. I was like, yeah, he's like, oh, bring your favorite piece and we'll talk about it and I'll, teach you a little bit. And funnily enough for me, I picked the Tower, which is, some of you tarot people know, is a card which brings about fast change, whether good or bad. And he was kind of like, "Whoa, this is curious," And well, it was right. It basically, a few months later, I went through a lot of different changes in my life, and my dog passed. Like, I got a divorce, I had to move out, and I'm like, wow, that was kind of a note right there. Maybe the cards are telling me something or something like that. So anyway, I had the show, it was great. And I was like, how am I going to make this into something? What's the next step? And then I was like, oh, maybe I should document my first tarot card reading. And I was like, who better to read them than Ariel? Because Ariel is very skilled in the occult and occult history, and he reads tarot, and he's a hermeticist, and he's a mason. And I was like, that'll be kind of fun, and it'll be kind of fun documentation. And I have a lot of supportive friends who came, and they videotaped the event. Carrie Burt, Jim Toot, Damien Olson, and they kind of went. We all got together one day and hung out and had a good time, actually. And I documented it. And after I brought the footage home and I looked at it and I cut it, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But I was like, it was kind of a little boring for me. And I was like, there was no drama in the reading. And I was kind of like, I was like, this is interesting, but I don't know if it serves as an interesting thing to watch all throughout. And I was like, I could cut it. And I was thinking of all these things. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I go forward and make it half of a documentary and then half of like a fiction? I was like, and then it'll kind of spice it up, So I did. And I was, working my way through of how I was going to do this. And with everything that I do creatively, I kind of do it improvisationally, and I kind of see what happens. So I thought, maybe I'll make these vignettes of people who are behind the scenes, kind of controlling what's going on in the tarot reading. Like Ariel could be this fictional character that's like, oh, I control all these people and these elves and all this kind of stuff. And then, well, I settled on my first character, which was Sophie Yudiskaya, and I went there and I was like, she's making her own tarot deck, and she actually told me that she's like, oh, you kind of influenced me to make my own. And I was like, oh wow, I'd love to come see it, but also can I film you? And she's like, sure. And I was like, I want you to be a character, in this film, and you're the tarot maker, and I made up a little loose script, so I basically work on ideas, and then I go from there, and I kind of just see what happens, so I went over, and I remember it was a cold day, and Sophie was kind of sick, and she was this good sport, and she was with me the whole time, and she was like, I'm still doing it, and so we filmed a whole bunch of stuff, which was great. We filmed her cards that are in the film. We filmed her making them. She was reciting some things, and then I was thinking about incorporating the 7 principles of Hermeticism to it, and I was loosely going with that theme with her. And then I saw the hermit card come up at that shoot, and I was like, "That's it, the 7 principles of Hermeticism. I'm gonna go with that." Like, that happened at that first shoot with her, and I was like, "Wait, could you read this? Could you read this?" And she's like, "Sure, sure." So she was reading a whole bunch of stuff, and that's kind of where that idea came from. And then, of course, I was like, I got 6 more. So I was scouted out some friends and people online to become the 7 Hermetic principles. And so that was kind of fun. And basically like going to people's studios, and I like to see their surroundings and what they're doing. And so this kind of gave me a chance to do that as well. And kind of steer them. I was like, I don't want to give them lines, but maybe I could have them read the principles, and then, but also I wanted it to be personal. So I was like, I want them to kind of show their art as well and be a part of this whole thing. So they were kind of like studio visits they were showing their art as well as getting into this character. And so usually about that kind of thing takes about an hour to really get people going, and then you kind of see where it goes. And certain things connect and certain things don't, and that's in the editing process. You kind of take that apart. So there were some interesting things that were happening, like Jill, when I went over there, she started talking about her dreams, and we kind of went that route. And I thought that was perfect for her character. Sam, he was talking about his artwork and the cause and effect of his artwork. uh, Mel Muscat, she's a performance artist, and she was doing these great kind of movements and stuff. Jessica, belly dancer, that was also worked for Vibration. So put all these things together and worked it in there. And during that time, I think it was during that time I was filming, Ariel, Sirocco, gave me a tour of Masonic Hall in Stamford, Connecticut. And I documented that. And I was like, okay, you can have it kind of somewhat factual, but then we'll kind of, like doctor it up a little bit and make it kind of like mysterious, to kind of go with the theme of the mystery, And so there was I guess you can call it the third act. And so I had all these great things together, and then as I work, as I said, I work improvisationally. I just saw Kevin's cat walk by her, but anyway, work improvisationally, and things start to happen, and I don't know, and I'm cutting as I'm going along, and I'm thinking of these grand things, and I had these great artists and photographers, and like Joan, I sat with her one day talking about her work and kind of making her into this character and just kind of steering her there. And then I was like, okay, how am I going to end this? And then I was thinking of this great thing with all these performance artists at Spectrum, where I book. Spectrum's a music place downtown, and I had access to that because I usually work with what I have, and so I was thinking of that, and then I was going to have Ariel there, and he was going to be actually watching the documentary that I did, the real documentary of the Terror Society, and it's going to be kind of this cycle of reflection and him looking at the real footage, but he's kind of the fictional character and so on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to end it that way. And then I had a date, and I called everybody, and everybody accepted, and then COVID happened. And then I canceled it. I was like, I didn't want to get anybody sick and stuff like that, and it was just the right thing to do. So I kind of sat on it, and I went back and forth with the film and the edit, back and forth with the film and the edit, here all the time. And it was kind of frustrating because I was like, I really had the scene in my head, and I think it was like 2 months into lockdown, maybe 3 months in, and I kind of basically got over myself. And I was like, okay, I have to make this like work, So I was thinking again, like I work with what I have. What do I have? I was like, okay, I have me, and then I have the wife in the house, and I was like, "Hey, had some alternate ideas of maybe a scene. You know, you want to be in the film?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, okay." So we had fun with it, you know, and also Ariel couldn't make it any of the scenes because of COVID and other things. And so I was like, you know, I need Ariel for this one scene, even if I'm not going to do a grand thing. So I bought a wig, and I bought a big black wig, and wore a suit jacket, and became Ariel, and for those scenes, and pieced it together, and worked it out, and I think it's pretty successful for what I was going for. And I was at the end scene. I mean, there's a lot to talk about within the whole thing. I mean, there's touching on Kabbalah, there's touching on Hermeticism, Masonry. There's the concept of the dweller at the threshold, which Stacy was towards the end, and that's kind of looking beyond the veil of death and seeing what's on the other side. It also means a whole bunch of other things that I probably don't even know. I got that concept through Zanani, A Rosicrucian's Tale by, what is this guy, Lytton. And there's a chapter in there that goes over that. And it's quite a fun book, actually, if you want to read it, fiction. And all of these other things that I've been reading that kind of influence it. And as I said, I'm not an occultist, I'm an artist. I'm just into the stuff. Manly P. Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages, that has a good influence on a lot of this stuff. Corpus Hermeticum, and also the Kabbalion by the Three Initiates, which I don't know where that is around the house, so I couldn't show it to you. And then there's also the Kabbalah aspect, which was the Chicken Kabbalah and the Son of Chicken Kabbalah, which Kevin, thank you for introducing me to that. These are all by Lon Milo Duquette, who's fantastic, and you can find him on Facebook. And he actually reads from these books, and he could tell you all about them. A lot of the numbering of Damien's scene, the grand architect, comes from this. So he's kind of just giving you these 3, 3, 7, 7, 12, and that's a lot to do with Lon's take on actually how to understanding this whole thing of the Kabbalah. And if you read more about it, you'll understand what I'm going for. But if you don't know it, it becomes just a surreal thing and a fun thing. And with that, you know, I saw that some people wouldn't be into all this and they could just watch it as a film, and I wanted to make it interesting. So that's why I got the artists involved, and that's why I got their art involved. And there's quite some characters in there, and everyone did fantastic, I thought, for the film. So and then after I did it and I put it together, I was kind of like, you know, what do I do with it? You know, there's COVID, I can't screen it. I wanted to do a kind of double feature with Carrie Burt. He's a big influence. He's here, and he got me kind of making films in a way. Before that, I've only explored painting and music, you know. So we were going to do a double feature and maybe an anthology, and then COVID and whatnot. And then so I was like, you know, let me look around, see what we can do. And I was kind of poking around at Zoom and all this, but I wanted a good quality. So it seems like the best quality that I found was Amazon Prime. And yes, it's really easy to get your content on there if you want, if you have a film that you've made. You just kind of have to upload it and make a transcript. And well, if you have you can't put copyrighted material up there. But yeah, I mean, you could even put racier stuff. You just, you know, title it rated R, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, so just a note, if you're ever into that stuff, you can actually put it on Amazon Prime rather easily. So yeah, that is pretty much the story behind how this started. And well, I don't know, it might end or not. I don't know. We'll see. I did submit this to a lot of festivals, and you know, over the past couple of months, and I heard back from a few places in India that gave some recognition, called the Cult Critic Awards. And another place today was an Italian film festival in Rome, which kind of were interested in it. So, all of which, unfortunately, they're doing everything online, but it's nice to get recognized for this because this all just started as fun and, well, it is still fun, but it just all started and, as a small thing and it became this big thing. So this is pretty much what I've been working on for the past 4 or 5 years, and I guess this is kind of the end of the film, and you just got to show it around. But yeah, so there's my spiel on what the basics of how it all came together. So I see a lot of the artists are here that were in the film, and some people who made it happen. And thanks for everything that you've done to make this happen. And I'm hoping that most of you have seen the film. If not, I hope this whole spiel that I just did kind of interested you enough to actually see it. If you don't have Prime, I could work something out where you can see it as well. Just let me know. So anyway, this is the question part, I guess. So if you have any questions, also this is my first Zoom meeting that I've actually started, so and controlled, so I hope I'm doing well. So yeah, if you have any questions, unmute yourself and shoot away.
I have a question.
Yes.
So did you have any qualms about not being an expert as you explored these traditions and so forth?
I didn't have any qualms about it. I mean, I did ask Ariel a couple of things if I was going in the right direction. I mean, I like to take these things and I like to make them into my own thing, and I learn from them. And I also, in my personal opinion, a lot of these things are very, you can make something from all of these concepts for yourself. Like, I don't think there's a specific thing with all of these.
You mean like open to interpretation?
Yeah, they're all open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole point, because I think they're all there for you to kind of find something important within yourself, and you get there. So how you get there doesn't matter as long as you get there. You could use Hermeticism, you could use Tarot, you could use all this stuff. But I mean, no, I mean, it was, as I went along, I did a documentation and I had fun with it and I made art and I learned something, and the whole thing is kind of saying that as well. So I'm putting together all of these things that I learned to show people and hopefully inspire them to go and do their own research and get something out of it, and the whole point of the 33 steps there, it's a Masonic thing of the Scottish Rite. So you go up the levels and you get to a point where you're enlightened, you make yourself a better person and stuff. And I feel in a way that my film is made me a better person and made me kind of learn things and stuff like that, and make my art better. So like the 33 steps went all the way up, and it kind of made something different out of me. So next.
If I can make it, one of the reactions I had was that I viewed things like the Masonic activity as being sort of a small town Midwest, poles apart from the Brooklyn art scene, having the tarot thing being more like our kind of people. That somehow you managed to have those very dissimilar things coexist, and I wonder if that points a way forward in the default world, where it isn't impossible if people have fundamentally different outlooks, not to be knifing each other, but just to be coexisting and maybe even noticing each other without immediately claiming the other side in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, makes total sense, and I agree. I think everyone's the same, and we should be able to coexist. And it's funny. Like I could have maybe tried to have it at like the Grand Masonic Lodge somewhere on 23rd Street or whatever, but I thought it was really cool to have it at a small place that was almost like it was real. It was like it was just like like an everyday person, as you could say, And the more and more you know people, no matter who they are, the more you realize that everyone's the same kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
The roughly the same physical size as the facility on Charles Place.
Yeah, roughly the same size as the Tarot
Yeah, that's
Society.
great. So it even shows, people have the same human motive to create order out of chaos as to what being in the world means.
Exactly. Yeah. I do miss the Tarot Society a lot. That was a great place for a lot of different things.
I felt it felt so wonderful to be there. I used to, even if it wasn't totally convenient, I tried to shoehorn it in an evening when other things were also going on. I felt it was just sort of a real destination.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, also I should add, if you don't have any questions, you could also just, give me some feedback on the film. We can go from there. That's fine. I mean, I don't know, what did people get from it, I know what I got from it, but I don't know.
Well, one of the comments on Amazon Prime was that he didn't learn enough about the reading. I think he thought it was supposed to be, whoever commented and watched it, thought it was going to be kind of an instructional film, when yours is just sort of an exploration and into these things. But I appreciated that sense of play and a sense of discovery, and because I am essentially an artist too, and making a film this way is a way of engaging with this material and really learning about it, and it's a process driven. And I really appreciate Ariel's openness to avail us of something that I must imagine is very important, and we've had coffee, and that these are things that really are important to him, and that I'm really glad that you working together, there was no sense of disrespect, that there was a playfulness to it, and these are ways that we can reflect back and discover what's going on and who we are. But I don't want to hog the discourse. I want to hear from others. But I'm really glad that you finished this despite COVID, and that everyone cooperated. I think it's a great sense that getting all these people's point of view is really, really wonderful, because they're in the occult, you can get sometimes I get a tunnel vision, and your openness really can make it more that everyone participates. And I think there's something great about that. I mean, both are needed, but I really like that about this film. That it was
I tried to make it playful. I tried to have fun with it, and
but not disrespectful. Yeah,
not disrespectful. No, not at all. But it can be really heavy material. It usually is, and one of the reasons why I really like Lon Duquette's approach to it is because he's funny. You read his book, and half of the time you're laughing, and you're just like, "This is amazing! I'm learning."
It's interesting because that's where we meet. I have none of those other books.
Yeah,
okay. I do have the Lon Milo Duquette, but I have all these other different books, and so but we meet there, which is very interesting. And he's a very open, this is about living. This is not about darkness and about isolation and doom. This is about getting more out of life and reframing things in a new way. So, but enough about me. Yeah.
Ariel, so since you're the main character, which you're basically yourself, what was your experience seeing this after you've...
Wow. Well, first of all, the playfulness, I think, added to the growth of the film. Steve said something really, really important about how you managed to all of this order out of this chaos in the editing process, and you brought a sensibility to it that what is and just was so astounding. I've seen the movie more than once, and so far, every time I've seen it, new symbolism comes to life, and it's just absolutely amazing. My experience with the film itself was that I had no idea where you were going to go with this. It was like being invited to the playground and having all these wonderful toys, and okay, so what are we going to do? And I remember, well, actually a few things stick in my mind. First of all, I had no idea that you were actually going to bring the pictures. I thought I was going to be dealing with a small deck and everything like that. But you brought me out of my comfort zone, handing me these huge, hand-painted things.
Yeah.
And just yeah, exactly, and it brought me to a place, whereas you said earlier, it's that person at the threshold, and you brought me there when I had to do the reading, which was fascinating because it brought a different energy to it all. And then when you proposed the idea of going up to the lodge, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be on film. And then you had me go through all of that. And we spent a lot of time opening up different doors there at the lodge. And
literally.
like literally, I really wasn't quite sure where you're going to take all of this. And it did seem rather chaotic. I couldn't see what you were beginning to see and were yet to see. But when I finally saw the finished product, I was absolutely amazed. There's a sweetness to it, woven into it. And of course, the other actors
Run away.
contributed their part. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Fun, and I saw the growth in it, and it brought me to a different place that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to traverse that path, and, but you did it for me, so thank you.
That's great.
And I'm not an artist; I'm an occultist. So we're coming at it from two different ways,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun for me to work from nothing or chaos and put it together, because it's like a mathematical problem. You basically you get all this, you accumulate these ideas and these things, and you put them in a pot, and you're like, your head's gonna explode. Like every time I edit something, I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do with it? And then you're like, well, you just got to keep starting and doing it. You do a little at a time, or more at a time, depends. And then you get there, and certain things start to kind of fall together. And a lot of things fell together in this. So when you said like what you've watched it several times, and you see different things, most of those are intentional. Some of them aren't, because I'll watch it again and I'll see things that I didn't see before, and I'm like, well, that really goes with all the other stuff, and kind of interesting. And it almost goes hand in hand with the tarot, because well, you could say that what you're pulling out of the deck is random, and then you look at it and you start to kind of put things together, and then it kind of tells the story. And then so it's kind of like with film, it's like, well, my way of improvisational film kind of thing, it's like, that's what it is. You get these cards, which are your medium, and you put it all together and you start cutting, and then they kind of start saying something, which is interesting. And same thing with my art, but I mean, the film is like, it's a lot, I mean, making films, I think, as an art form, is just like this huge monster that there's so many things to think about and put together, and it's a challenge. It's really a challenge.
Yeah, I want to hear from other people, but I think in order to get it done, you have to stay open, because there's so many things. If you had a fixed idea in your head, and you said it has to be this way, it probably never would have been done. And you probably wouldn't have all this participation, and we wouldn't, a lot of times I've seen people, like, they have a fixed idea of what it's supposed to be, and they never get it done. So I think that working with the contingencies of life. It's just how you can actually get it to the finish line, which is I think, however someone feels their work is a success, if it's finished, or it brings them to a point where the next work can be finished and better, then I think that's a success.
Yeah.
So, but I want to hear from other people.
Yeah, let's hear from some of the other actors and their experience after watching the film and being in the film.
I totally forgot I was in the film.
Well, there's Kevin. Kevin was just Kevin in the film, but yeah, talk.
I sorry if someone else is gonna go. I don't really have much, but I totally forgot you interviewed me. So I was a little bit surprised, but I also don't take this the wrong way. I totally forgot that we had that conversation about showing your work. I remember you coming and we were hanging out outside. It was nighttime, and you pulled out the stack from your bag, and I didn't expect them to be little like that. I thought they were like paintings, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
You're like, oh,
Yeah.
and you pull out this deck of paintings, and I just holding them in my hand felt really cool. You know, you can kind of like flip through them like a book.
They do feel cool when you hold them.
It does feel, yeah, they're kind of like pliable, but not too bad. It just feels like a nice chunk. And I like the way that you were able to shuffle them in the film that way. But I don't recall that conversation about you hadn't finished it yet. And I guess maybe something I said made you, inspired to finish it. But it's cool to notice that, like, you never know what offhand comment you might make to somebody that will inspire them to finish something. So I'm really glad you did.
Well, you did have a hand in it. I mean, it was like, well, now, I got to take advantage of this.
Got a gallery show.
Got a gallery show at a place that actually has tarot. So I have to do this.
That show was great. It looked really cool on the wall. You don't really get to see an entire tarot deck all at once, unless you have lots of space to lay them on the floor or something. So I really appreciated that. I wonder, have you had tarot readings since then? And have you learned anything or anything kind of come to fruition as a result of Ariel's reading from the film?
Well, I have not had any tarot readings after that, actually. That was the only one, which is kind of funny. What comes to mind with your question was I have actually had people asking me to read cards for them. and I'm like, I don't know. So this is kind of a funny story. So I was with a good friend in London, Matt Chilton, and we were getting drunk and having some wine, and we haven't seen each other in a long time. And it was like 2 a.m, and Matt's like, hey, Robert, he's like, can you do me a favor and read my tarot cards for me? And I'm like, well, I was like, I don't know how to read them. I mean, I get the idea and I get what some of them mean. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And he kept pestering me. And I would love Matt, but I was like, Matt, come on. And I was like, at a point I broke down and I was like, okay, how about this? I'll entertain this, but I'll need about like a half an hour to go online to see a basic spread and lay them out and kind of marry what I know about the cards and then kind of go online and see what people are saying, which I did. So I laid them out for him, and it was a simple spread, and I took like a half hour to think about it, and it was weird. It was weird because like I read them and I was like, this is uncannily like Matt. Like it was weird. And what it was telling me was something that I kind of didn't want to tell him. And, oh, what did they say? What did they say? And I was like, well, I went on the whole thing and I'll just keep it as like, I was like, well, you could do better. You could just do better in certain aspects of your life without getting into details because I'm respecting Matt. But like, and he looked at me and he was just like, you're absolutely right. Oh my God. The cards are real. And I'm like, I don't know. Take it what you will, but it was kind of entertaining. So like, that was one time that I read the cards. I mean, I've also done, for myself, I've asked them questions, and two notable things. Well, one notable thing I told you was Ariel told me to show him one of my favorite cards in the early stages, and it was the Tower, and all that stuff happened in my life. So that was kind of interesting. The second one was down the line. I asked the cards a question, and it was some stupid trivial stuff, and I was just like, oh, I was dating this woman, and I was like, oh, hey, you know, cards, what's going on here? I don't get it. You know, what do you say? You know, and I pulled a card. I don't even remember the card, but it was the general consensus was just like, whatever, this isn't happening. You know, I was like, okay, fine. So we started dating, went on a few more dates, and I was like even more confused, right? And I was just like, cards, you know, like what's going on with this woman? Is she into me or not? This give me mixed signals. So I shuffled the deck really well, and boom, the same card comes up. And I was like, that's so weird, you know. All right, twice, you know. And then this happened a third time. I mean, what are the odds of pulling the same card in a sufficiently shuffled deck every time? 3 times you pull the same card and it tells you the same things. And I was just like, this is kind of weird, you know, kind of weird. So, I mean, that was another kind of experience with the cards. I mean, I don't know. You want to look at it different ways, you know. I mean, there as it goes, you know, my energy is supposed to be in the cards, you know, a lot of my energy. I made the paintings, I made the cards. You know, if you want to go in the intangible route, maybe the cards do say something, you know. Maybe it's just an amazing mathematical equation that I broke by pulling the same card 3 times. I don't know, you know, skeptic, whatever, some interesting things happen. Yes. Skeptic, I probably will always be, but you know, I always that there is something always in the background anyway. So, you know, that could explain a lot of things.
I think Joan wanted to talk.
Oh yeah, Joan.
Joan.
Oh,
Sorry.
Joan. I'm sorry, Joan. Okay, hi, Joan. Joan, hacker, photographer. Do you have yourself on mute? I can't hear you. Yeah, I think you do, because I can't hear you at all. Although it does. Oh yeah, you're coming through.
Okay.
No, you were going through my interface. Never mind. No, well, as I told you personally, Robert, you know, I had been waiting to have a deck for ages. And I'd get decks every once in a while, like people would be like, oh, do you want this? But it never felt right. And then when you made your deck, I was like, okay, great. And I didn't touch them for ages. They sat on my shrine. I just was like, and then, no, but there was a time when I was asking something and it like was like seriously 3 times in a row, the same card.
Oh, wow.
And I really believe that your cards are magic. And yeah, like I don't know anything about tarot, but I go online and I, you know, yeah. So, but my question is about your visual style, and you know, your paintings have such a unique visual style, and I was wondering what you were thinking about, at least as like your visual language when you're making the film and editing and that relationship, or if there was a relationship, or if you kind of consider them 2 different mediums. Or...
Visual language, as I said, is like improvisational. You know, kind of just seeing how it develops. And, you know, I may start off with this grand idea in my head and it's never the same, but I go with it, you know, and you kind of make with what you have, and that's the improvisational part. And then you start to see connections, you know, if you really look, and you kind of you know, everything is connected, you know, and in life, I think, as well. And then you look at the film and it's the same thing, and you start to develop this narrative. And I like this film in particular because there's a lot of little things that go together within the film. So there's a lot of little edits that I made at right times, and I was for the documentary part on the reading, I was actually going on a lot of Ariel's cues. He would say certain things, and I would cut to a certain scene, whether it be you or somebody else, that was actually working, something with what he said. So there's a point where he's like, this is very Masonic, and then I cut to the Masonic hall, and I just, that's one way you can go about it, to tell people what to say exactly, and then you achieve those things. But then there's another way of like giving yourself this big mathematical equation, is what I've been calling it, and you just kind of figure it out, haphazard sometimes, and I tried to make it look good, and I started off that shoot, and it was 3 different cameras, one camera better than the other, you can see that in the film, which is fine. When I went to Masonic Hall, I had 2 different cameras. The better camera didn't work because you had a hum in the background of the DSLR. Then I had a little video camera, which I shot again, and that worked a lot better, even though it's a little hot on a lot of things. But then, even though it was kind of hot on the visual side, I go with it. So I make it even hotter. So, I like more contrast. Give it a look, make it kind of just work with what you have. And then, the shoots with a lot of the other Hermetic principles, I try to, not break budget and things like that. Use the places I have. People just get excited to dress up and do stuff too. Find the right people. And it's fun to like work with friends. That's the whole point. The one main thing about this talk is like around people that I've interacted with. I haven't seen in a long time because it's being in quarantine. I see a few other people here that are new, and maybe I'll get to meet them one day or whatever. I don't know. It's more of a social thing. And making film is making a social thing. It's fun, try not to.
It has to be collaborative. It kind of,
Collaborative.
It's good to have a plan. It's good to know this is what I know in general what the message, and then it is best when you can be flexible when you're on set and you're working with, I don't want to get too much into process, but there was something I always find striking about your paintings, especially the one in the back one, is that I've really realized that it's sort of like there's no sense of that we're on planet Earth with gravity, meaning that with the sense of gravity, it's like, oh, I know this is the ground because it's pulling me there, and I know this is the sky because the ground is putting me here. But in this world where there's no center of gravity, there really is no way. I think even in a ritual, maybe that sometimes you'll spin around and then you will choose almost at random what north is. Ariel will know this better than I. I'm sort of a dilettante when it comes to the occult. I'm fascinated by it, but I cherry pick what is meaningful to me in all these different disciplines. It's a means to an end, and but I do respect people who say this is the tradition I want to stay in, and I want to this will be my organizing tradition. But I'm more. But it just struck me that your paintings, at least the later ones, live in this sort of like, we don't know what north, south, east, and west is, and there's something, I guess, scary about that, but there's something freeing about that, because if you can live in that environment, then it means you're safe. You have a sense of safety, and I think fear is at the bottom of what?
All of the stuff I do is like visionary. I'm kind of making this world
where it's a sort of mental space rather than a physical one. Yeah.
And in the film, it's and you're right. You go through all of these traditions, occult philosophies, and all
disciplines
and there is a whole plethora of things that you can take inspiration from as an artist. It's amazing. It's just all of these I don't know, just even read the Bible, you know, things like that, you know, and you're
it's
like,
almost a magical approach. I mean, I'm not really up on what's interesting art now, but I think when conceptual art came, it sort of was like there was no sense of that magic actually re-enchanted art. I think art, I'm not a historian, but you get a sense of it becomes really academic, the structuralist, and there's a sort of dryness to it, and it might be accurate in a materialistic universe, but does it speak the chaos of the soul? Does it because the passions you can't you can't justify mathematically in a certain way, but you can feel really strongly and have, quote, no reason to, and that will sometimes, if you follow it and stay safe, there's William Blake, the fool who persisted in his folly will become wise.
yeah.
So, but I really appreciate you working well with others, because I've been a very isolated artist, and I have to do things differently now, and especially as a filmmaker, it's best to collaborate with others.
It's fun to collaborate. I mean, that was the whole point. You get to know all these people, and you work with them, and you make something, and then
like painting is you and the canvas. Film is like so it comes from different
social aspects.
You almost have to wear a different hat.
And you learn, you know, if you pick people like Ariel and Kevin and etc., like you learn, like
and they ground the film. That's the grounding where you can go from there. We know that they're the serious practitioners, because it's like if it's all chaos, then we have no center of perspective, and maybe that can work. I don't know. I'd love to see what anybody does with that, but it's nice to have a ground and then play from that. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to branch off that. Now, I liked all the actors. The segments were really, really good. Sophie, Jill, Muscat. But I want to ask you, Robert, what brought you to choosing Damon's place for the architect? Because the first time I saw that, I thought that was absolutely perfect and so well performed that I just loved the scene. It kind of brought me almost to a feeling of home, being an occultist, at the studio and going, wow, okay, this guy is the architect. I'm looking around there on the film, and it's not just a planet, but it looks like a universe with everything included, you know? And the other segment that really struck home, I thought it was so powerful, was Joan's piece. The thing on gender, and it just came across so emphatically that it just blew me away. Can you talk on that? Because it may have been serendipitous, but it really does seem like there was a projective mental force in play that made you choose these particular folks.
Well, you know, as I said, I work with what I have. So, you know, me booking shows, you know, and being involved with events and all that kind of thing, you get to know a lot of people. So, you know, I go through my head, I'm like, well, who do I know that might fit this role well, and will they be interested? And, well, I've been to Damien's studio, and you guys have seen a lot of it on the film, and if he's nice enough to invite you there, it's a really amazing experience. And just by going in there, you're like, oh my God, you're literally in another world. Like with all of that stuff is amazing. And to have that resource by, you know, I didn't have to pay for a prop, you know. Damien is just kind enough to let me in and work with me and show me all of his works. And that was the other thing. I wanted people to show their art as well. You know, and everybody does, whether it be Just Dancing or Joan's photography or whatever. I wanted everyone to show their art, you know. And then Damien, and you know, he doesn't like, he told me that he doesn't like his voice, but I think his voice is perfect for it. And I was just like, he's an amazing dude. Like he loves to dress up. Like, you know, all of that was his cult. All of those were his cult, you know. And so I was like, he's the damn architect, you know. He's the architect.
I didn't feel that I was in character.
Absolutely.
I felt like I was in my daily.
Exactly.
Me.
Exactly.
Are you muted? Oh.
Yeah.
And then you get Damien talking, and you know, everyone takes a while to really start to get into the character. That's why I do it about an hour. And then Damien starts to connect, you know, just ask him a certain couple of questions or whatever. I mean, this goes for everybody, you know. I mean, the same thing with Joan, same thing with Mel, you know, everyone, you know, in the beginning, they're not sure what's going on, and they, you know, they don't know where to go. But that's what I want, you know, and then, you know, you go from there, and you get people kind of in the right direction when they're falling off. Some people are harder than others, I admit, but that's like the challenge, you know. I guess that's what it is for me, is a challenge, right? You want this person to go in a certain place, and then I'm thinking of like, what are they saying? Does this connect? Will this connect? And then, like, you know, further on you get in, and you know, when I got to Joan, she was one of the last shoots, you know, I was like, oh, you know, some of the things she's saying have parallels to other things previously in the film. You start to pick these things up, and you're like, you know, that's kind of cool, you know, and you kind of going back and forth, and you're like, okay, you're starting to, for me, I think of the editing process while the film is shooting, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can have that. Or like if somebody starts to go on something, like I really like Jill's part, because she was going on about her dreams, and I was like, keep talking about your dreams, just keep talking about them, you know. And they just happen to like nicely fit into this part of her, you know, and I thought that was cool. So yeah, like Damien is the architect. Like, there is no
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
About that. Actually, they're not my questions. They're people who saw the film, and they asked me a couple of. First off, they asked me how do I dare to question the Big Bang? And I said, I didn't question the Big Bang. The Big Bang happened. I didn't mean that it didn't happen, but it happened a lot of other things before the Big Bang.
Yeah.
The universe always existed. That's eternity. The Big Bang was just a thing that happened one good day, and it moved things around.
Yeah.
So the second thing was that the numbers. What do I mean by 3, 7, and 12? And then I thought that they might relate to the cards. So I consulted the cards as past, present, and future. Number 3 is the past. Number 7 is the chariot, the present.
Okay.
And number 12 is the future. And number 12 is the hanged man, right?
Possibly.
I think so.
Ariel might be able to answer that, but this is where I got it from.
Right.
And what this book
Is that
is,
the chicken Kabbalah?
the son of Chicken Kabbalah.
Oh,
And
so that's
it's
the minutes that takes the chicken to get cooked.
No, but this is by, as I said, Lon Milo Duquette, and this is kind of like his. Basically, he explains to you in class form, like these are his kind of classes that he gives.
Like Kabbalah for dummies.
To learn the Kabbalah, and basically that 3 is. I think it's one of his classes, and it's the first 3 letters that you learn in his book of the Kabbalah. And he goes on to the 2nd degree, which is the 7, and then the 3rd degree, which is the 12. So while I was directing you, I was reading this book. And so these ideas were in my head. And so I kind of was like, okay, let's introduce elements of the Kabbalah, but it was kind of fun to do it the Lon way and like, you know, go by what he was doing. So, but with that, I like the fact that you interpreted it in your own way. And that's the whole point of this, is to you get something out of it for yourself.
I also made a numerology analysis, adding 3 and 7 is 10, and 12 is 22. That is the 22nd arcane of the cards.
And that's another parallel that goes in there. Yeah.
And I told people to figure out by themselves. That's the fun of the movie. That
exactly.
It's an obscure movie, but it makes sense. So all you have to do is use it as an oracle, find out.
Yeah.
Try to.
I want to ask everyone, I guess maybe a personal question, because it was only when I started meditating about 7 years ago that I was became open to see like a number like 3 as to sort of anthropomorphize what this. And I wondered, you know, if how many people meditate and how it's made me more open and less actually more trusting of going into the unknown and playing and being more playful with meanings of things and trusting my intuition, which I'd always been able to do as an artist, but I can do a little more as a human being. It's more of a comment.
I think, well, for me, like I meditate, but for me, making art is meditation. So when I go into deep editing, when I go into paintings, like, you know, you go through, it's almost like the same thing when you're sitting, you're meditating, you're kind of distracted, you're thinking about what's going on in the day. And then eventually you get there. And then you're there for however long, then you come out of it. So it's like art is like the same way. When I'm painting, I'm like, I don't want to paint. And then I go and I paint and I'm like, okay, you know, and I'm distracted by whatever, the internet, whatever. And then when you get there and you start to paint, you know, you go into this other state of mind and then you start to forget everything except that you're painting. Same thing with editing. I mean, you know, you start to think, I mean, I guess editing is a little different because you are actually thinking about how things go together, but you kind of lose yourself in a creative state and you forget everything else. So like art to me is like meditation, you know, art to me is almost like
we made films together. This was your tarot film and I made a tarot film, and we sort of, like when you were describing your film, we were out to dinner, I said you should do this and this and this and this, and then I suddenly had a film in my head, talking to you about your film, and then I said, Robert, is it okay if I make my film that I've got in my head and you make your, and but I was fascinated with the right and left hemisphere idea.
Yours
and
was
the idea. And I think that I don't know if it's, you know, my wife says it's debunked, but Ian McGilchrist went to Oxford, so I don't know who to trust, my wife or an Oxford grad. But but even if it's not, you know, there's a certain mode which is more like right hemisphere, even if it's not localized. You know, apparently both hemispheres do the same thing, but in different ways. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, the left hemisphere was when we were hunting for things, and we had to have a sharp focus, and we had to have a narrow focus, and that the right hemisphere is on the lookout, that we don't become prey as we're searching for food as predators. And there's different ways of working where we're focused, we have an idea and we write it down, and then we want to execute it in the real world. And then, you know, in the physical world, we want to take something that's a plan and execute it, you know. Or we say, this is the general idea of what I want to, these are ideas I want to explore, and I want to have these people and objects, and these are the things I'm interested in, and you become a co-creator with the contingencies of the world. But I'm really glad to be part of this. I can talk forever,
let's
shut me up.
Let's give people the chance to ask questions. We have another 10 minutes. Set it to end at 8:15. We'll go up until then, and maybe we could also stay on. It's up to you, and then you could basically jump off one by one. Bye, Kevin. Good to have you.
Bye, Kevin. Good to see you.
Congrats on the film, Robert. That's great.
Be
Thank
good.
you so much. Hopefully there'll be a new Kevin Tarot Society.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We'll see. A very cool one.
He's enjoying being on the beach right there. There you go.
That's right.
Here.
Everybody. Bye.
Great. So, well, yeah, I mean, if anyone else has any comments, questions?
When is your next film coming out?
That's a good question. I have ideas. I don't know where they'll go. I'm kind of thinking that it might be a silent film.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was thinking of some ideas like that. And, well, we'll see how that goes. It all starts with thinking. So, you know, I got to steep that for a while. And I don't know how much, I don't know, maybe I might have to make a board for that, at least in the beginning, because I was thinking some ideas, and a silent film might be a little different. So, but we'll see how it goes. You know?
But do ideas come to you when you meditate?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, they usually come to me after I meditate, where I'm not thinking anything at all. And then when I'm and then I come out of meditation and I sit there and I start thinking, and things come to me. So maybe sometimes, I mean, but also ideas come to me, when I'm on the subway or walking around. I mean, it's the same thing, Thanks, Steve, for the broadcast quality on Amazon Prime was that's why I put it on Prime. I know it's like the big monster, but like the quality I wanted the quality to be there. So that was one thing I wanted to do. And he does say, I think Steve says that we could do a free trial for on a month if you want to check it out. So and if anybody on here hasn't seen it, I could also send you a private link to not a great quality, but like, you could see it at least. So cool. Well, anyone else? Questions, comments? Nope. Cool. All right.
I think John's trying to.
John?
I think. You got to unmute yourself, John.
You got to unmute yourself, John, if you'd like to say something. Yeah, you're talking and you have to unmute yourself.
While John is trying to unmute, I thought it was interesting how
On top.
in the Terra Society,
Green, John.
Yeah.
like the quality, like the sound quality of the Terra Society. I'm not a filmmaker, but like the sort of ambient noise was interesting there, and also at the lodge. And then the ones in the park were different. The sound quality was different. It was kind of like two different worlds or something,
Yeah, I remember, Stace, when we were watching a Seizon Suzuki interview, and he was talking about like, they were saying like your films are so kind of crazy because every scene is a different color scheme and a different sound quality. And he's like, why wouldn't it be? And I kind of like that. It's like you make every scene like something different. And yeah, using ambience is great, and sometimes you watch these like new 4K productions on Amazon or whatever. They're interesting, but like, it's too perfect, it's just, it doesn't have that punk rock quality to it, Exactly. John, did you want to say something, or you couldn't figure out how to unmute yourself? I guess that he's going to try again.
He's going to drop his drawer. Oh, he's going to drop trowel. All right.
Oh,
speaking of punk rock.
Sorry. He's doing, who knows? Okay.
What happened?
Oh, okay, Sophie. All right. We can talk later, Sophie. Yeah, thanks for chiming in, and sorry your internet's bad. But yeah, thanks everyone for participating. Thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, this was great. And hopefully I'll talk to everyone soon.
Yes.
Sooner than later with this COVID thing. So
see you, everyone.
This will conclude the Great Work in 33 Steps Q&A. If you'd like to just stay on and say hi, that's fun too. So if you have anything to talk about. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.